Hey guys, what's up? My name is Fedor_8. I play heads up sit and goes on full tilt poker. You can usually find me playing the $110 turbos or the $220 turbos at full tilt. Um, what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to just do a quick hand history review of one of the games I just played um, against an unknown named Natty Nora at the $220 heads up sit and go turbo on full tilt. I'm just going to give a quick video here. Just going to go through this hand history. It's pretty fast. It's pretty short. 22 hands in the match. I'm just going to go ahead and give you my commentary and my thought process behind certain hands. Basically give you guys an idea of what a video leak finder is and what to expect if you decide to go with coaching from me. What to expect if you go with a video leak finder. This is also the way I do my hand history reviews. So if you're interested in hand history reviews, this is pretty much what I'm going to do. If you were to go ahead and order a hand history review from me, I would basically have you send me the document by email. I would open it up in a replayer like this one, and I would go through every hand, basically correcting your thought process, correcting the decisions that you made, and giving you the reasons why I would have done something differently. And basically explain based on what I see in the hand histories. For video leak finders, what I do for those is that I go ahead and have you send me a video of yourself playing. The reason why I prefer a video leak finder over hand history reviews is because we can take into consideration some timing tells and some other factors that can come into play, since I'm basically watching you play live rather than watching a hand history review where I don't have that kind of information. So that's why I prefer the video leak finders. I am best known for my video leak finders. I also coach on SNG.com, which I think is the best website for heads up sit and go training there is. There's a lot of good coaches there, so definitely check it out if you haven't already. And that's also a good place for you to see some of my video leak finders that I post as some of my monthly videos. So take a look. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. After that little introduction, I'm going to go ahead and start this video. Like I said, an unknown player here at the 220s on full tilt. So I pick up King 6 in the big blind here, the first hand, facing a raise, and this is Natty Nora's min raise. It's going to be her standard raise throughout the match on the button. She's going to opt for a min raise. And I just go ahead and fold King 6. The reason why I fold King 6, I think that King X kind of hands out of the big blinds, especially early on, are kind of hands that could get you in trouble because a lot of the small blinds raising range is going to be strong King X hands. Not necessarily only strong King X hands, but a lot of King X is going to make up their pre-flop raising range. And I think that especially early on, if you're calling a pre-flop raise with a hand like King 5 or King 6, can get you into a lot of trouble, especially since you don't really know your opponent's tendencies, their abilities of barreling turns and triple barreling rivers. We don't know if they're only double barreling with top pair, or if they're able to double barrel with air. That's going to be important when we flop top pair with our moderate or very mediocre kicker, and we still have a fragile hand. We're not going to really be sure where we stand when we're facing, let's say, multiple streets of betting, since we don't really know if they're able to do that as a bluff or if it's solely for value. So all that to say is that King X hands, weak King X hands early on should just be avoided. I pick up Ace Deuce on the button. I'm just going to go ahead and raise here. My standard as well in the turbo is a min raise. I think it makes things a lot easier if we're keeping pots a little smaller pre-flop by min raising rather than 3xing. Especially with the structure that full tilt has for their turbos. I mean, the blinds move up pretty quick, so I think the min raise is the best idea pre-flop. There are people that decide to make it 3x, and that's fine as well. But my preference is the min raise, and that's completely different. Obviously, if you're playing on Poker Stars, where their structures are a little different than full tilts. So I raise and he folds, and it's that simple. Again, King X hand facing a raise, just muck. And as you can see, I'm going to be fairly aggressive from the button. Reason for that is because we definitely have a pretty big advantage when we're in position. So for that reason, we want to be aggressive. We want to play our advantage to its fullest by raising pots and creating pots that we can win more times than not. And that's also the same thing goes basically if you're out of position. You want to keep pots a little smaller because we're at a disadvantage. And when we're first to act, obviously things are a little more difficult for us. Not only because we're lacking information when we're first to act, but also because it's very difficult to play out of position. Because let's say we do flop the nuts, it's going to be hard to get 3 streets of value or 3 streets of betting just because we don't really. It's pretty hard to just bet and get called 3 streets. Also, it's pretty easy for our opponents to just flat call. Let's say if they flop the nuts and we flop a big hand, it's easy for them to just slow play a hand and just call, rather than if they were out of position and we were in position. When we see a check raise, I think we get much more information when our opponent check raises rather than when they just call our bet. So it's much more difficult to get 3 streets of betting when we're out of position. We definitely have less information available to us. And obviously it's much more difficult to bluff and to float. Obviously floating out of position is very difficult as well. So I'm going to be aggressive from the small blind, raise 8-6 here and got a fold. Pick up ace-7 facing a raise. I'm just going to call. I don't opt for a 3-bet this early and this deep just because like I don't want a 3-bet. I think the standard 3-bet on full tilt if we hit the pot button would be 180. So let's say we 3-bet ace-7 and we get called. We're going to have a pot of 360. And we don't really have a hand that flops all too well. I mean, we have an ace, but we can't really flop top pair with both our cards. Chances are if we flop top pair, it will be with the ace. And if we have an ace, it's unlikely our opponent does. So when we flop an ace and we just go ahead and c-bet, number one, we won't get that much value out of it. Chances are we won't get that much value out of it because our opponent's possibly going to have air or a lesser hand than top pair, and they probably won't give us too much value for that. And also, I mean, we have to consider that we're going to be missing a very large percentage of the time, since we could really only have an ace to flop to make top pair. When we flop a 7, we might have middle to bottom pair. And we won't be all that happy with the strength of our hand, just because we won't really have that top pair in a big pot out of position. Very tough to play. And we can't forget the fact that he can call us with a better ace-x hand here with ace-8 or better, and we flop an ace, we're going to go broke on the flop. So all that to say is that I decided to just flat, see a flop, small ball it a little bit, still early on, and if I flop an ace, my ace is pretty disguised since I didn't 3-bet it. And most opponents won't really give me credit for having an ace if I didn't 3-bet pre-flop. Their standard thinking will be, okay, an ace flopped, an easy c-bet for me because my opponent didn't 3-bet. Unlikely that he has an ace, so I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet, or c-bet I should say. So try to get some value by hiding the strength of my hand by playing it this way. So Natty Nora goes ahead and c-bets on the flop. I do see a lot of my students deciding to float on these kind of boards. We need to consider if we're making a float, we want to have some kind of equity or a decent amount of equity against our opponent's hand. In this situation, if our opponent flop top pair and is betting here, we don't really have that much equity because we only have really 3 outs to improve our hand to the best hand. On the other hand, if we had a hand like ace-7, or let's say with the ace of spades, that already improves our hand just because we increase the amount of draws. We pick up a backdoor. We have a backdoor flush draw, and on the turn we can pick up a flush draw. And if we want to play it aggressive, we can go ahead and check raise a turn and try to get him off some marginal hands. So that's something we need to consider as well. So just to say that if we want to float, we could look for a better spot to float where we have more equity rather than some random spots or with some very minimal number of outs. So I just go ahead and fold my ace-7, keeping him pretty honest. I mean, I'm playing pretty honest right now. Really not doing anything too crazy, playing pretty ABC at this point. And I think that that kind of style will work well against a player like Natty Nora. I didn't comment on the last 2 hands. 3-2 off. I just decided to fold. Obviously, doesn't play too well post flop, and I don't want to raise this hand, considering I'm raising a very wide range of hands. I do want to still show the ability to fold and perhaps to limp as well, just so that she thinks I'm still honest. I'm assuming Natty Nora is a girl, but anyway, she still gives me credit for raising rather than if I raise any 2 cards. Obviously, she's gonna give me a little more trouble. They'll play back at me because they'll give me less credit for having hands. Now, Some players obviously play extremely well post flop, and they could raise any two cards, and that's fine. That works for them. But for me, I prefer folding a small range of hands and limping a small range as well, depending on the opponent, obviously. If an opponent lets you run them over completely, then you can go ahead and raise any two cards. That works.